LinkedIn is 277% more effective for organic lead generation than any other platform. And now you're seeing 88% of the LinkedIn population, and there's over 1.1 billion people on there, 88% of them are individuals that are in decision-making roles, which means 12% of the providers.
Wow.
Which means if you're a coach, if you're a consultant or a service professional, it's almost a 9-to-1 from those that are seeking someone like you to you providing that offer. And that's when I started to realize that, the average income that someone makes on Instagram and Facebook is $30,000 a year or less. There are a ton of people that want to work with us, but financially they just can't pull the trigger because the monetary means aren't there. But when you look at a professional networking platform like LinkedIn, where the average income is $75,000 to $100,000 a year or more, if you have something of high value to offer, it's going to be an easier yes because you have primed buyers.
Welcome to the Dad Nation podcast, the place where high-performing men are empowered to reclaim their home, their health, and their happiness while enhancing their career success. You see, in a world full of noise, burnout, and mediocrity, we believe what's missing is courageous and compassionate leadership in the home, because when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. You see, this isn't just a podcast. It's a movement for men who refuse to settle for less in their families, in their focus, and their future. We are curse breakers and we are legacy makers. I am your host, Mitchell Osmond, and I'm honored that you've chosen to invest your most valuable asset, which is your time, with me today. Now let's get into it. Well, today's guest, he's a master of resilience and reinvention. Scott Aaron is an award-winning marketer, a 4-time best-selling author, top podcaster, one of the leading experts in LinkedIn in the world. He's helped thousands of entrepreneurs and service-based professionals grow their brands, generate organic leads, and build meaningful connections, really that turn into real revenue. It's not BS. It's turning meaningful connections into real money that you can spend. But listen, Scott's story isn't just about success. It's about comeback. Because after selling his first business for $1 million, he later found himself $1.5 million in debt and facing personal bankruptcy. And I'd love to talk about this. But instead of quitting, he rebuilt everything from the ground up using LinkedIn as the platform that changed his life and changed his business. Now, today, Scott teaches others how to grow their income and create a life they're proud of on and off the clock. So, Scott, welcome to the Dad Nation podcast, brother.
Mitchell, grateful to be here and excited for the conversation.
Yeah, it's going to be good. We were just talking a little bit about this before we hit record, but I love a good rags to riches story. I'm a sucker for that underdog story. I think we all are to some extent. But talk to us a little bit about that, man, because I know there's going to be a lot of listeners who are, entrepreneurs and business professionals, but maybe have a similar story. Or maybe going through that rags part where they've lost it, and they're trying to get that next sale and they're stressed out. Talk to us a little bit about that, man. What was that like for you? And how did you kind of get the courage or strength or resilience to pick yourself back up? Does that make sense?
It does. And, I'm sure there's other people out there like me, but I had no clue what I wanted to be when I grew up. I loved being active. I loved sports. I loved hanging out with my friends. I loved music. I didn't really have a business passion, though. How a lot of people, they know they want to be a lawyer. They know they want to be a doctor. They know they want to go into accounting, finance, all that stuff. I had zero clue. So when I graduated high school in 1997 and then headed off to the University of Pittsburgh, I was undecided because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And at the same time, my father, who's always been an entrepreneur, had recently broke partnership in an industrial company that he was part owner of, and he went out to manage physical rebothation centers inside of fitness clubs. My dad's been a fitness buff, still is. We're both competitive bench pressers, both did bodybuilding. So I used to go to the gym with him as a little kid and just watch him work out. Still works out with the same trainer for like 40 years.
That's cool.
And for me, I always saw this work-life balance that my dad had where he was my coach in basketball. He was my coach in baseball. We had dinner as a family every night, Monday through Thursday. Friday, friends and stuff. But we had a sit-down dinner Monday through Thursday. And, when my dad broke partnership and went out to manage these locations, I never, doubted his judgment. Outside looking in, everything seemed to be going great. But when I came back after my freshman year, my dad called a family meeting, and he basically said, listen, there's some issues with this company that I've been working for. I'm going to be leaving. They're under investigation by the federal government, and I'm cooperating, but there is a chance that I may get house arrest for whatever information I give them and they find. So unbeknownst to us, there was a 9.5 insurance fraud case going on. My dad was included in that, just being a part of the company. And at that time, it was recommended that I come home, just in case my dad, when he left, when that company was under investigation, he needed to do something to bring in money to for the family. So there was a failing fitness club in downtown Philadelphia called Old City Ironworks. And there was a chiropractic firm that was in there that were friends with my father. And they said, listen, this gym's going under. You may have an opportunity to kind of swoop in and buy it at pennies on the dollar, which he did with the help of my two grandfathers. And in between my dad cooperating with the federal government, pleading guilty, he put all of his time into helping regrow this gym. He was there from open to close every single day for 6 months. So when we got to sentencing, it wasn't house arrest. He actually got sentenced to 2.5 years in federal prison. And that was a complete shock to all of us because that was never the plan. I came home to be closer to the family, but now I was going to have to take over this gym. And I was 19 years old. I had never run a business. I'd had 3 jobs in my entire life. I worked at like a nuts and candy store, bagging nuts and dried fruits. I worked on a golf course, cutting tees and greens and raking sand traps. And I worked at a beer distributor. That's my work history. And I did a little bit of construction in between my senior year of high school and freshman year, scraping pigeon off of steps and stuff. That was my extent of work history. So as we're driving my father to federal prison, he goes, listen, you're going to have to step up and you're going to have to support your sister and your mom. And wow. You're going to have to dive into this. Now, I never worked out, but I was always physically active. But when my dad said, you're the man of the house now, I took that upon myself, like not as a challenge. This is just what it is. And in life, whether it's personal or business, we're all dealt hands that really, really look, but you have to play them anyway. And I wasn't bluffing. I was just playing a hand that I didn't really think was going to beat the hands that other people were holding. But a lot happened in that 2.5 years. Number one, I grew the gym from around 300 members to 1,200. So I 4x'd the membership base. I realized that I've always was an inquisitive kid. I was always, I had lots of friends, loved asking questions. And what I realized in the inquisitiveness that I always had and the interest that I always took in people really led me to running a solid operation at the gym, because in the gym industry, it's all about personal relationships. People sometimes care less about the look of a gym. They care more about the environment and the energy that surrounds it. And, this was an old school, hardcore gym. Like, it wasn't pretty. It had everything that you needed. But the other thing that I got really good at was sales. Because when people would come in for a tour, I was the first face that they would see, and I would show them around. And what I realized is when you ask the right questions, you get the right answers. So people used to ask me all the time, like my staff, like, how do you get every single person to sign up when they walk in? And I said it was simple. I asked them what had them coming into the gym today. And whatever their answer was, that's where I would start the tour. If they were interested in cardio, I'd start with the cardio deck. If they were interested in classes, show them the classrooms. If they were interested in weights, strength training, I would start with that area of the gym. And then everything else that I showed them became a bonus. So it almost became an irresistible offer for them to sign up. So my dad comes back home. We end up opening a second location in 2002. So we had this gym from 98 to 2002, the original flagship, and then we opened up a second location in 2002. 2003, interestingly enough, we were approached by another family to actually purchase both gyms, as you kind of forementioned, and we ended up landing on the sale price of $1 million, which we never intended to sell these gyms. And after the sale, I was 24 years old, overnight millionaire, and there was about a year between '03 and '04 where we just kind of personal trained and we helped manage the gym and to turn it over to the new family, which a lot of people weren't happy about it. But again, it was their personal issues, but it was our life that we were looking out for. And we had a non-compete, so we had to kind of go outside of the normal area of where we would open a gym. So we landed just outside of the art museum, Rocky Steps. If people are familiar with Philadelphia, we were about 2 miles away from the Rocky Steps, on the cusp of Philadelphia, just outside the city. And it was a huge space. Our other gyms were 4,000 and 3,000 square feet. This gym was 12,000 square feet. It was more than double than whatever we've ever had. And how you kind of mentioned going from a millionaire to 1.5 million in debt, people say, well, how does that happen? Well, the gym wasn't financed the right way. Liquid assets were used instead of lines of credit, so we used up all the money. And again, I didn't have as much of a say as I should have, just because, my dad was the business guy. I was kind of like, the foundational piece to helping the membership grow, and bad business decisions were made. And for me, I always lived in the solution and not the problem. So when I ended up 6 years later, $1.5 million in debt, I said to myself, all right, well, how do I get out of this? In the sense of, what can I do to chip away? And I was a very successful personal trainer, in the sense of I was doing well financially as a trainer, but personally it sucked, because if you're not training, you're not earning. So I was training 70 to 80 hours a week. I had a day and a half off. I worked half days on Saturdays, off on Sunday, back at it Monday morning at 5 a.m. And it really wasn't the type of life that I really wanted for myself. But things really didn't shift until my son was born in 2012. That's when I realized that I had to kind of shift my thinking of how I was going to go about living the life that I wanted to live. And I understand that there's a lot of people that when they face challenges, you can get stuck in those challenges. And I'm very cognizant of that. But I always was able to rewire my thought process in the sense, well, it's not doing me any good to kind of stay focused on the negative aspect of this. So what now? What can I do to overcome this situation and this problem? So I always believed in moving forward, not forgetting, not burying it, not, sweeping it under the rug, but what can I do to just move a millimeter forward each day? So I work towards getting out of this situation. So what really kind of like the culmination of all this that kind of carved this path that I've been on now for almost 13 years. A friend of mine asked me, he goes, if you got sick or injured where you couldn't train, or something happened to the gym where you had to close it, how would you make money? I've never, ever at that point been asked that question before. And how I took that in was I was being asked about my business mortality. And not many people think about their business mortality. They think they get into business, I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life, right? But that question shook me, because I realized that if I did get sick or injured, or if something did happen to the gym, I had no way of making money, because the gym was losing money every single month. My training was supporting the the negative cash flow that was coming in and still having to provide for everything else, that's when I really started thinking, okay, how can I leverage my skill set, not so much in person, but in the online forum? And as I looked at my demographic, as I looked at the people that I trained, and I thought about the rise of social media, what platform should I be using to really put myself out there? And that's when LinkedIn landed into my lap.
Yeah, that's great, man. What a powerful story, and thank you for giving us the context. And just I can imagine, man, how many challenges you would have faced, between you and your father, those tensions, and then him getting out of prison and you deciding to work together again. The tension of you being handed this business at 19 years old, like I can't imagine. And then, you becoming a father. I mean, us as men, when we become fathers, that's I think an existential shift for us. It's like, well, what now? And for me, my story, that's a very similar for when my son was born. It was like, man, it's now or never, and that was the courage that got me to launch all of this in the first place. It's this idea of legacy, and I love that you've dug into LinkedIn, because that's a really great platform for professional development and all those different things. And you are a LinkedIn expert. So I'd love to talk a little bit about that, and I think this episode's going to be a little selfish for me because I don't understand LinkedIn myself, man.
Yeah.
Like my Instagram following is over probably 20x what my LinkedIn following is.
Yeah.
Right. And here's the thing. I think LinkedIn feels intimidating for a lot of people that maybe they don't understand it. So let's park it here for a moment, and if you don't mind, I'll pick your brain on a couple things so that maybe the listeners who are tuning in here, they might gain some insights on how to see and leverage, LinkedIn. But a quick note before we jump in and go any deeper, I want to tell you about an insanely practical tool to build connection before conflict even happens. And I just released it, and it's called the Spark Starter Kit. And guys tell me all the time, it's like having me as a coach in their pocket. It's for busy guys who have the best intentions but can never seem to find the time to plan great dates, or the time to think about how to respond the right way, or ruminating over a text message to get it right, to say the right thing. Here's the thing, now you don't have to, because the Spark Starter Kit is your romance on autopilot for an entire year. Okay, inside this kit, you're going to get 365 Spark text templates. All right, these are pre-written text messages, so you can say the right thing every day without ever overthinking. And there's text for every situation. There's 52 plug-and-play date night blueprints. That's one powerful date night per week, already planned for you. All you've got to do is show up and be the hero. You've got 100 Spark Starter questions, which are conversational prompts that are designed to rebuild intimacy fast with your wife. And the last part, which is my favorite, it's a 3-part romance reset mini course, so you can rebuild connection, restore polarity, and reignite desire. And also, it's built in this living document that as I add more modules and add more things to it, if you buy this, you're going to get lifetime access to it and get all the future updates. And I tell you what, it's cheaper than a bouquet of flowers that, let's be real, are going to die in a week. All right? Put your romance on autopilot for an entire year. I think right now it's $17. I mean, it's going to get way more expensive than that as time goes. But if you want to get this, go to sparkstarterkit.com, or you can grab the link to it in the show notes below. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that entrepreneurs have about LinkedIn? And what are maybe a couple moves that every listener should make today to start getting traction on LinkedIn? Does that make sense?
Yeah, the two biggest misconceptions is, number one, it's just like any other social media platform, and it's not. It's comparing apples to bowling balls. LinkedIn is a separate animal all itself because of its visibility, the professional aspect of it, but it's a global networking event every single day that you log on, and it's an opportunity for growth. The other misconception is people think that it's for getting a job, and there was some validity to that because at one point it was for job seekers and recruiters, but LinkedIn has separated all that with Sales Navigator, with Recruiter, and now you're seeing 88% of the LinkedIn population, and there's over 1.1 billion people on there, 88% of them are individuals that are in decision-making roles, which means 12% of the providers. Which
Wow.
means if you're a coach, if you're a consultant or a service professional, it's almost a 9-to-1 from those that are seeking someone like you to you providing that offer. And that's when I started to realize that, again, if people want to continue to try to go down the rabbit holes and the scroll holes of Facebook and Instagram and do all the TikTok dances and stuff, yeah, you may get visibility, you may get people reaching out to you, but when you look at the numbers, and this is the big thing that I always tell people, facts are friendly. You can't deny statistics. You know, the average income that someone makes on Instagram and Facebook is $30,000 a year or less. There are a ton of people that want to work with us, but financially they just can't pull the trigger because the monetary means aren't there. But when you look at a professional networking platform like LinkedIn, where the average income is $75,000 to $100,000 a year or more, if you have something of high value to offer, it's going to be an easier yes because you have primed buyers. The other thing is that lead gen is the lifeline to any business. If you are not generating leads, you are going to be out of business at some point. I don't know when, but if you're not booking calls every single week with qualified people, if you're not having emails being collected every single day, you're going to be out of business. Everybody has to recognize that social media is rented land. I don't care how big of a following you have on Instagram, how many subscribers on YouTube, how many Facebook friends you have, how many TikTok followers, or even LinkedIn connections. It could be taken away from you in an instant. So a lot of the focus that I teach and I have is how to leverage LinkedIn from a personal and business branding perspective for visibility, growth, and sustainability for a business to grow and scale. That's not only going to provide that growth on the platform, but is going to allow people to grow a much needed email list that they may not have, or it's been kind of stagnant. So I've rewired and kind of backtracked on the aspect of what needs to be done on social media. But going back to the lead generation aspect that provides all this, connect calls, networking calls, collaboration calls, emails being captured, LinkedIn is 277% more effective for organic lead generation than any other platform. And I say all these numbers because it's still a mystery to me why people aren't using this platform. And, you know, Mitchell, I hear it all the time. You know, oh, I have a LinkedIn profile, but, you know, oh, I know I've heard about LinkedIn, but, and no one uses it because here's what I've realized. Even though LinkedIn is the oldest social media platform, beta was launched in 2000. It was open to the world in 2002, which is almost, I guess, Facebook came around in 2005. Instagram followed in 2007. You know, YouTube was fairly early on as well. I think they just had their 25th anniversary or 20th anniversary. At the end of the day, because the majority of the people that are still using Facebook and Instagram, it's become a habitual thing. People are just so used to using it. It's almost like an automatic thing that they're adding to their stories every day. They're posting on Instagram, they're posting on Facebook. But if you look at who is using those platforms, but more importantly, why do people use Facebook? Why do people use Instagram? All right, so if you unpack that compared to why people use LinkedIn, people use LinkedIn to connect, to network, and to advance themselves professionally. If you look at Facebook, Facebook is the barbecue of social media. That's where people go to hang out. If you ever scroll through, I promise you, if you just literally almost like thumb up on your news feed, just like you were on The Price is Right spinning that wheel, you would land on either a birth, a death, an engagement, a birthday, a sweet 16, a marriage, or an anniversary. It's life events. Then if you look at Instagram, it is so hard to keep up with Instagram because every day it's something new, whether it's just people showing the reality TV show of their life. It's a lot of automation right now. Everyone is trying to be an influencer, which I still don't even know what that means. But nothing seems real. Everyone is showing the highlight reel of their life. They're not showing the down and dirty. But coincidentally, I know I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but it's on my heart.
I'm all about it.
I always, and I know people can resonate with this. If you've ever been on Instagram and you've ever scrolled through and you've ever seen a post of someone posting about a very raw and real moment in their life and they're crying in the picture. And I know people have seen this before. I think about one thing and one thing only. Who the hell is thinking about taking a picture of themselves while they're crying and posting on social media at the time, at that low point that they're feeling right then and there? That right there tells you it's clickbait. It is complete clickbait right there, because anyone that's having that breakdown moment, that vulnerability moment, that mirror turning moment where they're just breaking down, they are just raw. Who's thinking about grabbing their phone and taking a picture of them looking like the Hot Mess Express and then posting it on social media? That's not real. Real people don't do that. So people can still use Facebook and Instagram. Whether they're getting results or not is to be seen. But I know that if someone was to go all in with LinkedIn and they committed to it for a year and they did it the right way, you provided value to the network that you're building, right? Value-added content. You connected with the right people, meaning potential ideal clients from an industry or professional title, power partners for collaborations like Mitchell and I are doing right now on podcasting, because you can connect with business professionals that have podcasts that are looking for guests all day long, but also making sure that you're nurturing the people that you're connecting with, because it is the ultimate lead gen source. Because unlike other social media platforms, it is appropriate to reach out to people on LinkedIn because it's a networking platform. So you're always looking for warm touch points. So a warm touch point could be someone accepts your connection request, someone engages, likes, loves a post, someone comments on one of your posts, someone votes in a LinkedIn poll that you conduct, someone subscribes to your newsletter. Those are all warm touch reasons for you to reach out and say, hey, Mitchell, thanks for subscribing to my podcast. Hey, Mitchell, thanks for voting in my poll. Thanks for liking my post. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for accepting my connection. And you're not allowed to automate anything on LinkedIn. This is the one thing that I love about it. Wow. I love it because it forces people to use social media the right way and not hit the easy button. Oh, I'm just going to connect some sort of automated software that connects and messages for me. That's a one-way ticket to get your account restricted and blocked. I am a rule follower. And I think fatherhood has also taught me a lot about that, like being a good example, following the rules, right? Leaving my legacy. And I like to do things the right way. I like to be one of the good ones on LinkedIn, not teaching people the spammy or slimy tactics that a lot of people are teaching. And if people just latch onto it, if they can block out 15 to 20 minutes a day to just connect with people organically, reach out to some people, create some really good content, not repurposing garbage from other platforms, you're going to start to see some acquired sales and growth in your business like you've never, ever imagined. I've helped people make hundreds upon millions of extra revenue in their business just following my simple strategy that I love teaching people. And it works. And if you go to my LinkedIn profile, you'll see 530 plus recommendations on my profile. Still to this day, I may not have the biggest following. It's about 36,000. There's people that have a ton more than me. But I guarantee you, if you look at any of those big players, they have nowhere near the amount of social proof of other people stating how I help them than myself. So it's not about the size of your network. It's about the quality of your network and the results that you get for the people that you work with.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Man, you are, you're pretty passionate about LinkedIn. I can feel it.
I mean, I know it works because I know right now, Mitchell, there are so many people that are struggling financially. People, you may think the people that you're following on social media are crushing it. They are suffering in silence and they are scraping by. And that is not the point of being an entrepreneur. That is not the point of being a business owner. Being an entrepreneur and being a business owner is building your legacy right now, having a positive ROI every single month in your business, having the cash flow to be able to outsource and grow and scale and not have to work every single day and quote unquote grind it out and wear that badge of armor saying, I just put in 16 hours every single day this week. Well, good for you. I only put in 12 and my business grew. So if you have the systems to scale and you have the mindset and the patience to do it, it will happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. It's you're kind of telling my story a little bit because, I launched my coaching practice on Instagram exclusively and grew the following. It was the DM ads, the follower ads, the DMs lining up for sales calls. Didn't have an email list. That was my only lead, like my lead acquisition process, my client generation process. And then, it was over the summer, Instagram built a new automated system, like an AI component to the software, and it swept through the program and shut down 10 million accounts like overnight. Mine was one of those 10 million accounts. And so for 4 months, my business full on stopped. Like overnight, I woke up and I couldn't log in. I had sales guys in my DMs running the conversations, and they were messaging me like, "What's going on, man?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Scary.
And then I get this bogus, notification saying that I violated some guidelines, and it was like child porn or something. Like it was some ridiculous thing like nudity and abuse. I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Like my account is literally dedicated to helping fathers become better men and fathers and husbands and repairing marriages and all those different things. Anyways, all that to say, for 4 months, man, I was like sitting on nothing. And that's when I realized very quickly I built my business on rented land, and then creating, lead magnets and getting on podcasts. And that's how we connected, actually, Scott, on your show. That was a pivot to be like, I need to do something, and so I was on, like, I think over the summer, I've been on over 50 shows, which has been nuts and so fun and very, very helpful. But I say all that to say, man, you're talking about my story. That's exactly what happened to me. And so that's why I'm particularly interested in this conversation. Real quick, Scott, now put yourself in the shoes of a listener who might be sitting on the fence and they're hearing you talk about all these statistics and these numbers. And they're like, "Wow, okay, you sold me. LinkedIn sounds like a great idea." If you were a person who was starting from ground zero and wanted to launch the business and wanted to grow your platform, what are like the 3 first moves you would make today?
So number one, first and foremost, LinkedIn is a search engine. So people have to understand that. It's just like Google. It's just like Yahoo. So if you know it's a search engine, your number one focus should be SEO, search engine optimization. And it starts with your LinkedIn profile. So if your LinkedIn profile is not optimized from top to bottom, you're going to be invisible. It's just like any other business. If you have a fixing for sushi, you're going to get your phone out, you're going to open up Explorer or whatever browser you're using, you're going to type in sushi near me, and whoever has the best optimized website, it's going to pop up on the first search result page. You have to think about your LinkedIn profile that way. You have to build out your LinkedIn profile, not only letting people know who you are, what you do, and how you help, but it should be directed to your ideal client. So anyone that goes to my LinkedIn profile, my background banner says the sales and marketing system for LinkedIn for coaches and consultants. So it's this huge billboard behind my profile picture that basically tells people, hey, if you're a coach or consultant and you're wanting to learn LinkedIn sales and marketing, I'm your guy. Outside of that, the headline section is also where you can optimize for SEO. And what I tell people is that you get 220 characters. You should be thinking about the top 3 to 5 keywords that your ideal client searches for, that if they pump it into the search engine, your profile would pop up, right? So it could be something like client acquisition, sales, marketing, AI prompts, podcast host, right? So those are all specific, tangible, searchable keywords that if your ideal client was searching for those and you had them in your headline, your profile would more likely than not pop up. Now, I believe on doubling and tripling down on search engine optimization. So the second section is the summary or about section. And this is where you tell people a little bit about your story, how you help people, in what ways you help people, what offers that you have, and then listing 15 to 20 subset of hard skills. So these skills that you list that really highlight your expertise in every way, shape, or form are also going to play into the search engine optimization that you've already done in the headline section. So now things are starting to connect. So whatever you mention in the headline section, mention it again in the summary section. And then you'll obviously finish with a specific call to action. Check out my website here, check out my podcast here, email me here. So you have a way to take people from on to off. Now, the experience section on LinkedIn is where you kind of highlight what you are currently doing, your number one focus business-wise. Right now, the Time to Grow is the company that my wife and I run together. That's the top focus. And then you can have some sub-focuses underneath there. It could be coaching and consulting. It could be courses, past jobs that you've had, but you should have at least 3 listed. Now, what people typically do if they've ever set up a LinkedIn experience section where they add a position, the title of that position is basically they'll say account manager, marketing director, HR, right? That's fine. But after that, you want to list 3 hard skills. So for an example, mine says co-owner of the Time to Grow. And then I have one of those totem poles. And then it says marketing, totem pole, sales, totem pole, client acquisition, totem pole, business growth. So I keyword the specific title. So if someone was to go through my profile, they would see all the specific things that correlate to that title, not just saying account manager, HR rep. All the other sections on LinkedIn, it's very easy to set up. If you just click add profile section, you have some options. You can add your education, licenses and certifications, honors and awards. You can add skills. You can add publications. I create book sales because I list all my books in my LinkedIn profile. So people, it's hyperlinked to Amazon. So people, view the publication, takes them right to Amazon, and you can create book sales. So making sure that your LinkedIn profile acts almost like the homepage to a website where it's really painting a picture for people, that's the first and best thing that you should do. The second is now that you have your profile built, okay, how do I grow my network? Well, here's the thing. Every account on LinkedIn, and I use the free account. I've never used the paid version, and I only teach on the free. I know about all the paid versions, but my big belief is that you need to squeeze the juice out of the free first to see if you even worth it to do the paid. And I haven't had to pay, never will. And it's not that I don't recommend it. It is recommended for some, but for a coach, a consultant, certain service professionals, you don't need it. Now, with every account on LinkedIn, whether it's free or paid, everyone is given 100 invite credits a week. So that means you could seek to connect and invite 100 people to connect with you to invite them into your network. Now, unlike some of the other platforms, you are allowed 30,000 organic first connections on LinkedIn before the follow actually even kicks in. So, with Facebook, you're allowed, I think, 5,000 friends. Instagram, it's just followers. But LinkedIn is where you can actually grow your own organic network. You choose exactly who you want to connect with and who you want to accept connections from. So when you're sending out these connections, you can send 20 a day, 5 days a week, but don't go over that, because if you do, you'll get restricted. If you do it a first time, they'll block your account for a day, a second time for a week, a third time for a month, a fourth time, you get a lifetime restriction of never sending connections ever again. So LinkedIn is very strict about following the user agreement, which everyone agrees to as soon as they open their account. They just don't read it, but I did. So making sure that you don't go over 100. So that's 100 opportunities. So that brings up the question of okay, I get it, Scott, but who should I be connecting with? There's 2 types of people you should be connecting with. Number 1, people that you serve from a profession or industry standpoint. So whatever product, service, course, coaching, everybody has a business avatar. So for me, my wife and I, we work with coaches, we work with consultants, and we work with service professionals, i.e. accountants, lawyers, finance professionals, insurance professionals. So we work with all different types of people, but those are the people that we serve the best because we know that we can help them grow on LinkedIn because it's best for people whose client avatar are also business professionals. And then we show them how to leverage that. The second type of connection that you should have are what I call business allies. Now, you and I are business allies. We both have podcasts, so we can both support each other this way. So you can be leveraging LinkedIn from a collaboration station standpoint where you could just do collaboration after collaboration. So think of it this way. If you're a divorce attorney, one of your best business allies is an estate attorney because typically when people are getting divorced, there could be a split of assets and you're going to need an estate attorney to help with that. Vice versa, if you're an estate attorney and someone doesn't have a divorce attorney yet, you can kind of fold back into that. So that's the mindset that I want people to have. Connect with people that you serve from a professional or industry standpoint with whatever your offering is, and or people that you can collaborate with. Other coaches that don't do what you do. Podcast hosts, people that have groups that you can do a free training into. I get paid speaking gigs all the time from LinkedIn because of me putting myself out there and who I serve. So I just got booked to be the lead keynote at a national conference next May in Atlantic City for a national board of insurance agencies because a lot of my content on LinkedIn is about service professionals. So insurance brokers, they know they're a service professional. So when I talk about all this stuff and people start seeing what I do, that's when I get reached out like, hey, would you be open to potentially speaking at XYZ event? Now, the third and most important thing.
Hey, can I ask you something real quick? If this show has helped you out in any way, if you've gotten any value, clarity, or even just one gut check moment that's made you a better man, husband, or father, would you take 60 seconds and leave us an honest rating or review? And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to our channel so you never miss a drop. And if you really want to pay it forward, share this episode with a friend. Why? Because we know that there are millions of men out there silently struggling in their marriage, in their health, and in their mindset. Men who maybe were where you were just a few steps ago, feeling tired, stuck, and searching for answers. Finding this podcast might be the thing that changes everything for them. So thank you for being part of this movement and for helping more men become the husbands and fathers their families so desperately need. Now let's get back to the show.
The third and most important thing. It used to be messaging. It's still important, but I would say the third and most important thing to leverage on LinkedIn is being A, consistent with content, and B, the quality of your content. Now, unlike other social media platforms, you don't have to post every day on LinkedIn. So I want everyone to take a sigh of relief really quickly. You don't have to post every day on LinkedIn. So I recommend 3 times a week. Either Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. One of those two bookend methodologies is completely fine. Only 1% of the LinkedIn population posts 1 time a week or more. So if you're posting twice a week, you're in the top 0.1% of the LinkedIn population.
Wow.
So when we go back to the statistic that I shared earlier, about 12% being those providing services, 88 being the decision makers. So now you're putting yourself into a pool of people that are ready to buy or ready to hire, right? So now what's going to drive that? Your content. Your content should tell stories. It should be full of value. It should be full of tips and resources that position you as the expert and the go-to person in the space that you're in. If you read any of my LinkedIn content, you will be able to take away something. There are always tangible tips. There are always thoughts. There's always things of value that I am sharing that moves the needle forward for people where they know if something ever comes up where they need help with something like LinkedIn, guess whose door they're going to come knocking on? Mine. So it brings me to a subset of the third tip, which is, okay, 3 posts per week. What do I post? So a recommendation that I have for people to get started is an image text post on either Monday or Tuesday. So a text post, basically, it should have a catchy title. You should kind of give some correlation to why you're talking about what you're talking about that day, some key takeaways or some tangible tips that you're giving. And then a specific call to action. Which tip helped you the most? Let me know in the comments. Or what was your biggest takeaway from this post? Let me know in the comments to start the conversation. And always attach a personal branded photo of yourself. That is what puts a face to the content. You want to build a know, like, and trust? Show people who you are. The second post that I recommend on doing on Wednesdays is a market research poll question. You don't know what people are struggling with if you do not ask. So every Wednesday, I do a market research poll asking and taking the temperature of my LinkedIn audience what they're struggling with. Example, this Wednesday I asked what business system in regards to LinkedIn do you need to improve? Growing your network, messaging for clients, creating consistent content. So now I'm going to take the temperature of my network to see what they're struggling with, because then whatever the most popular answer is that they're quote unquote struggling with, I can create additional content that solves that problem to build the know, like, and trust. And that brings me to the third and final post, which one can do either on Thursday or Friday, is a LinkedIn newsletter edition. This is one of the most brilliant pieces of content that LinkedIn has allowed us to do, so you can build a subset of subscribers within your LinkedIn ecosystem. So you can have a newsletter so I have 36,000 followers, I have 27,000 connections, and I have 11,000 subscribers on my newsletter. So every week, LinkedIn is emailing 11,000 people my newsletter, and you can put calls to action in each newsletter edition at the very bottom. They're hyperlinks.
Yeah.
And that could be to book a call with you, visit your website, listen to your podcast, download a lead magnet, sign up for a workshop. So now you're converting those subscribers into email list subscribers. So you're truly taking people on the platform and getting them off the platform. So I know that was a mouthful, but if I was starting from scratch, I would focus on those three core things.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, it was tactical, right? And so I'm here for it, man. That's a ton of value. I think I think people just treat Instagram, well, they treat LinkedIn like Instagram. So they just carbon copy. Like, oh, I'll just post on all 17,000 platforms at the same time. And it's like, well, the demographic is different. Like you said, the reasons why they're there are different. And so it's really important that you understand the nuance of that platform. And you've done exactly that. You've given that context. I know we got to wrap it up here, but Scott, how can people, I think the question is fairly obvious at this point, but how can people find you? What's the best way to connect with you if they want to, further the relationship with you, man?
I mean, the obvious answer is LinkedIn. If you just search Scott Aaron Coach, my profile will come right up. I do 2 free LinkedIn trainings a week on the platform every Monday and Thursday. And like I said, I have a growing LinkedIn newsletter called LinkedIn Tips and Updates. It's a weekly newsletter every Friday morning. I drop a new edition where you can check out new information about LinkedIn and how you can leverage it to grow your business. But also our website, thetimetogrowcom, shows about all our courses, programs, mastermind, community that we have. You can obviously just Google me and you can find me. The podcast that Mitchell mentioned that he was on, my podcast is called Networking and Marketing Made Simple, approaching 800 episodes. So there's 2 episodes every week. One is a LinkedIn focused episode and one is an expert interview episode. And you can also find out more information about me there.
Awesome. Listen, Scott, thank you so much for your time today, man. This has been very tactical, very practical, and that's what we love here on the Dad Nation podcast. So, man, appreciate your time. And I'm going to put all the links to your products and your website and LinkedIn profile, all that stuff in the show notes below. So listen, if you are listening to the show today and you are on the fence about LinkedIn, about launching your business, or about leveling up the business and, the ways that we've talked about, please reach out to Scott, clearly a professional in what he does. And I know he's going to have nothing but a ton of value to add. So, all right. Thanks for being here, Scott.
Thanks, Mitchell. Appreciate the opportunity.
All right. We'll talk soon. Thank you for tuning into the Dad Nation podcast today. Listen, if today's conversation challenged you, if it encouraged you or helped you level up in any area of your life, would you do me a favor? Take 60 seconds to rate and review the show on whatever platform you're listening on. This helps us reach more men who need to hear this message. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Dad Nation YouTube channel, where you're going to find full episodes, clips, and exclusive content designed to help you win at home just like you do at work. All right, remember, your family does not need perfection. They need your presence. Your leadership matters. So keep showing up, keep leveling up, and never forget, when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. We'll see you next time.